Hello and welcome to another episode of JONAHDROME. This week I have special guest known from Aunty Donna fame, 1/3 of Aunty Donna. He is Broden Kelly. We delve in deep into talking about pro wrestling and comedy, general life, obviously two boys from Australia. He also grew up in my hood. So it is probably, well, it's not probably, it definitely is the longest one that I've done, but we out here making great content. Paige is a big fan of the rap air horn. Anyway, I'm not going to have a huge intro this week. But as always, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit like and also the bell notification, and of course, leave comments if you must. And the same goes for Spotify, Buzzsprout, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. I hope you all enjoy the interview, and here it is. Right. We are at another episode here of JONAHDROME. My guest this week, 1/3 of musical comedy group Aunty Donna Broden Kelly. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh my God, Jonah. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've been a fan of yours for a very long time. And I've, for your listeners, I've never met Jonah in person. I've only watched him from afar, and I've bugged him in DMs for a very long time on Instagram. Oh, that was a good wrestling match, wasn't it? Did you like that?
I'm happy to answer the questions. You know, someone else. I feel like comedy is almost very similar to like what I do, professional wrestling. What would you consider yourself? Comedian, an actor, musician, everything?
Funnily enough, I consider myself a professional wrestler. Okay. No, I'm probably like, what I was is I went to like acting school and wanted to be like a legitimate serious actor when I was 21.
Yep.
And then I got out and no one wanted to hire me for anything. So I was just like, because I was just like a boy. Because do you know what? And this is probably bad for the demographic that listen to your podcast, Jonah, but like no one wants to hear what a 21-year-old boy has to say. Like I remember being 21 having nothing interesting to say. Because you've got to go off and figure out who you are, and you've got to put in whatever you want to do. You got to put in the hours before you have anything interesting to say. Yeah. I think so. Like when you're 20, you got to have like 5, 6, 7 years of just eating shit, not literally, but just like being, get your ass kicked before you have like something good. So then 21, no one wanted to have a bar of me. And so me and a bunch of mates just went, let's try comedy then. And then
it worked out though.
Yeah, 10 years later, I'm okay. I'm slightly more interesting.
Yeah, I think, for all the listeners, wrestling is very much the same. I think you eat shit for a long time, but it's sort of, you become grizzled is the term that us wrestlers use. Where it does make you more interesting to the fans, I think, because you do have this long journey and people can follow you from when you were a little shit kicker to whatever you become.
Yeah. You start by replicating people that you like. That's the general, like in any field, you just start by copying. And then at some point you go, I think I'm this.
Yeah.
And then people tend to like that more than when you're copying someone.
Who did you copy as an actor?
For comedy and acting, I probably like the main people I copied. Like the reason I started doing comedy is there was this documentary that came out called Monty Python, Almost the Truth.
Okay.
And like, I just fucking love Monty Python so much. And this documentary was like a really in-depth story of how they started. Mm-hmm. And I just went, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to copy exactly how they did it. And like, they're obviously a billion times better than anything I've ever done. But it was just going like, how can I make a career out of just doing fun little sketches and songs and so pretty much every point in my career, I've looked at them and gone, well, okay, what have they done there and what are they doing there? Just as someone to replicate.
I mean, I think that's the best thing to do. Like same with wrestling. When I started out, I just tried to sort of be Samoa Joe. That's what I was. And I was like, okay, if I can sort of be like him and mold myself around the way that he wrestled and others that I obviously like. But then as you grow, you start to get your own stank to what you do, and then people, enjoy you being you.
Did you ever find that you start to like build your persona or who you are by what fans respond to? Like, or does it always just been internal? Because I know for me, there's been many times where in comedy, I'm just trying stuff and then something resonates and I don't know why, but it's just about like marking that. I don't know. Like, yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I think, wrestlers live for the pop. So again, just like musicians or comedians, you're trying to listen to the audience to see what they like. But at the same time, I know a lot of wrestlers and myself are very stubborn. So I try to do what I want to do. But you always got to listen to the crowd, because if the crowd's just dead shit, not reacting at all, you're obviously doing something wrong. The biggest things we do is live for reactions, and if you don't have any, then something's going wrong. I think, in my opinion,
that I got to get in the ring a little bit.
I know,
and I'm very cautiously like. We did Aunty Donna, my group did a little bit with Melbourne City Wrestling, which is
I was there.
That's your home court almost.
Almost very close.
Yeah. What's the Adelaide? What's Adelaide?
Wrestle Rampage. So that's where I spent most of my time. But I did win every single championship in MCW. Just saying.
But what really shocked me, apart from how much it hurt to fall over, was that how similar to comedy it is, and how it literally is almost the same thing. You're just looking for reactions, and you're looking to engage an audience, and also it's just so funny. Like, wrestling is so fucking funny. Like, and it's the only difference is how much the wrestling industry acknowledges that it's funny. I think comedians are more open to having a laugh, but
yes.
At points, like, wrestling can be funnier than stand up or sketch or whatever. I think
wrestling is a bit of everything, and definitely comedy. Definitely it is funny, and I think there's a lot of fake tough guys in wrestling. I myself am a real tough guy, but there are a lot of fake tough guys that take it a little bit too serious and don't want to have a laugh, or even to the point of being too serious backstage. I'm very much one that likes to have a laugh with the boys backstage and then go and do our job, have fun. But some people, I think in any career path, if you take your job too seriously, that's the same
with. There's two different streams of comedians out there as well. They're the ones who are just born funny and just go out and are finding and doing that every night and are figuring it out their own way. And then there are the ones who come in notepad in hand and take it dead seriously, never fucking party or anything like that. But it's also just, I guess it's just each to their own.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can become successful either way. If you do by the book and very strict, you can become successful. But at the same time, you can still do all those things and have fun, I think,
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, this is a wrestling podcast, so we're going to speak a lot about wrestling. But I think the more common thread with you and I is that we're both Australian. Now,
that is true.
You live in Victoria, right? Now, but you did live in good old South Australia for a little while, right?
Yeah, I was going to say this, man. Like, I'd never met you before, but this was crazy to me. Is like, I think we had the exact same upbringing in Adelaide, where I'm from a place called Glandore, which is Glandore. And you're from a place called Black Forest, which is literally one road divided. And I remember very early on, we started to talk about the chicken and chips shops that were in
South Road.
Yeah, in South Road, Black Forest, which was the best strip of shops, by the way.
Yeah.
There was, for the listeners, this, you may not connect with this, but there was a Video Easy.
Yeah.
Which was outstanding. There was an IGA, which is like a small grocery store. And then there was a chicken and chip shop, which was just the best. To me, still, I've not had better chips than the ones that were there in 2000,
Goodies. I think back then it was still called Goodies. I'm not sure. A few years ago, before I moved to the States, it was called Goodies.
You were still going there?
It was, yeah, still going there. Yeah. I lived literally around the corner from that strip of shops for a little while. The IGA had gone and became Anytime Fitness.
Oh, okay. See, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, there was a great bakery though, and a great
Okay.
Vietnamese roll place that I would eat all the time.
Oh man, it's the golden strip. The store's changed, but it still had the magic of it.
Still good.
But for me, I think the world peaked for me. My life peaked in about that time where new metal was at its peak. Like I'm listening to Linkin Park and a bit of Limp Bizkit as well.
Hey, I love it.
Eating chicken and chips, going to grade 6, watching some of the best wrestling, some of the best wrestlers of all time. It was an absolute golden era for me. I was that's peak world for me. Yeah, that's the happiest I've ever been.
I am very much the same kid, same upbringing, obviously same place, but doing those same things, going to the video shop, getting wrestling videos, then DVDs afterwards. It
was just suburban Adelaide. One of my
back.
Yeah,
can't go wrong.
Yeah, were you on a 64 or PlayStation?
So I was PlayStation, but all of my friends were 64. And since then, if you can see in the background, because of my wife, huge Nintendo 64 fan, I've got an old school TV, Nintendo 64. I mean, no, you can't go past No Mercy. It's such a great game. You get
oh my god,
it's the best wrestling game to me. So
what did I have? I had WWF Legends. Is that what it was called?
Legends.
Attitude. Attitude. I think it was Attitude.
Warzone. There was Warzone.
Attitude. Well. And all I could do was kick. I didn't know how to grapple at all, so I just kick, and the crowd would boo. That's how I first learned to become a heel.
Yeah.
So my instinct has always been to just keep pressing, keep kicking, and that's how you become a heel.
Yeah, I might try it in my next match. Just kick the whole time. See what the crowd does. I mean, it would be a good experiment,
Yeah, but there's been a lot of trodden ground in wrestling. Now you're always looking for the new thing. It could be a Dark Side of the Ring episode in a few years. The guy who just kept kicking.
Yeah, I love Dark Side of the Ring. I think I don't love what had happened to some of those people in the story, but it's very compelling to watch.
I fucking love tragedy, man. It's the best.
I mean, secretly every human does.
Oh yeah, man. I think it was the perfect. There's this genre now, which is kids who love stuff in the 90s and the early 2000s, and now there's stuff purely marketed to those people as adults and going, hey, remember that thing? Here's a mature look at it. Like there's that Netflix series Movies That Made Us, which I think is just so interesting. It's Dark Side of the Ring, all of that stuff. And I think it's the majority of YouTube as well. It's just talking about stuff from the year 2000.
Have you seen Dark Side of the 90s? It's the other show made by those people.
I haven't watched it yet, but I saw it had come out, and I saw that there was a River Phoenix episode. I'm super keen for that. Very clever pivot from those guys.
Yeah, it's really good. I think I've watched the first 5 episodes maybe. But at the moment, I'm watching Wentworth. That's what I'm watching.
Oh, you for real?
Yeah, for real. I'm up to season 6, I think we are, of Wentworth. And at first, so many people told me to watch it years ago when it started, and I was like, I don't want to watch that shit. Like, it's not going to be any good. And then I started watching it, and I got hooked. Like, after the first season, I'm like, this is great.
So, Susie Porter in that show, she plays Marie. So she's my mum in this show.
Really?
So I've been hanging out. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
She's so cool. But I've just been hanging out with her for a few weeks, and she's still transitioning from Wentworth to this new show, and she keeps dropping fucks accidentally because it's like she's so ingrained in Wentworth. So that's cool. I'll tell her that you're watching.
Get them juicy spoilers from her.
Yeah.
I obviously big fan of your work and Aunty Donna. I think the first video I saw was the Pud video, which became very popular in Australia and around the world.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, I sort of went into a deep dive of watching all the YouTube videos, which
that's great. That's what we want.
Yeah,
that's what we need.
Pretty sure I've watched them all myself. Elliot Sexton, who's Duke Hudson now, Shane Thorne, fellow Australians.
Tony Modra,
the real Tony Modra and the fake Tony Modra, all done a deep dive on YouTube. But what I found interesting was I find your comedy hilarious, but I showed a few Americans and they didn't know how to feel about it.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find that your comedy translates better to Australians, or it's just depends on person to person?
I think it's a frequency thing, right? So like definitely like when we started doing comedy years and years and years ago, there was this real like fork in the road moment where you have to go like, am I going to try and make something that's as populist as possible and goes out and hit and gets as many numbers as possible? Or do we just bite the bullet and just write stuff that we think is really funny? And if no one laughs at it, well, oh well, but at least we're kind of having fun along the way. Because before we started this, I'd never written anything before. All I'd done is performed other stuff. So like the first comedy show we ever did, we just booked some library meeting rooms in Melbourne and just got together and tried to write, but didn't know how to write at all. So like we would just get in this room and go like, oh, I think this is funny. And then we'd improvise. And then like we'd usually get to something that we thought was really funny.
Yep.
But there was no way of knowing if anyone ever would find it funny. And it's probably the most scared I've ever been, apart from when my team was in the AFL grand final a few weeks ago. Horrified.
I got my team on here, but I won't
get to that.
I won't talk about what happened with them.
We'll get to that, big boy. We'll get to that. But so we just get in these rooms and go, I think this is really fucking funny. And then we never showed it to anyone. I remember the first night we got up at like a university comedy night because someone said we could get up.
Okay.
And I was like, I got as drunk as possible because I was so scared. And they didn't laugh at everything, but some shit that was in my head a few weeks ago, they laughed at. Okay. And it was like the most incredible thing because, you know, everyone has dumb, stupid thoughts in their head.
Yeah.
And when you express it and it resonates with people, it's like it's a drug. And so we made a point early on that we have weird senses of humor. We're different. We all come from different backgrounds. We've all got we're weirdos. And we think there's enough people out there who are going to like our stuff if we stay who we are, than like trying to get a viral TikTok because, or you know, like making jokes that you know, political jokes or we wanted to do that, and that was the pact we made, was that we'd never be SNL, we'd never be you know that, but we would be something that if you liked us, you're gonna fucking love us. So like. And that's something I'm really, really proud of today, is that like we got to a place where we were able to make a career out of making pudding jokes and like
Fantastic.
one of my most favorite things we ever did is like we make an hour special every year. Yep. And we, you know, it was over 8 or 9 years we were learning how to do good comedy. Mm-hmm. And one of the most recent shows we made is we just went, let's just make a show about going to high school in the mid 2000s. And we kind of were like, no one's going to get this unless they're our age and they grew up potentially if they grew up in the suburbs of Melbourne. But everything that we wrote made me laugh.
Yeah.
And it was the most personal and like most hilarious thing to me. And we put it up. And it was our most well-received show, and we made it into a web series as well, and people loved that. And it was a real vindication of just going, if you really just write or create stuff that you like and are proud of, then people connect with it more than anything else.
Yeah, I think so. I think people can see authenticity over anything else. I love that series, by the way. The Kiln sketch is one of my favorite ones. Best day ever. Yeah. That song I still have saved in my Spotify.
Yeah, it's one of the great one of the great joys of my career is occasionally see you on Instagram deadlifting 1,000 pounds to this stupid comedy song. It's just like, wow, if this gets you going, then great.
It's a banger of a song. How do you go with that as well? Like, obviously you have these sketches that you guys do yourself, Mark, Zach. But what about when it comes to like writing music? Like, have you ever had any background in music or anything like that?
Yeah. So like one of the guys we went to university with is my mate, Tom. And he went to acting school despite the fact that he never wanted to be an actor at all. He just kind of tagged along.
Yeah.
and got a
Just a mate.
college. He just got a college debt because he just tagged along, and like he never handed in any essays or any reports or anything. But they never asked him to leave. He was just hung around.
Okay.
And he just would spent all his time at college just writing music and learning how to write music. And so when we finished, there was a bunch of us who wanted to do comedy, and he wanted to be a musician. So we were just like, let's do it together. And it was the same with a mate who I went to high school with, went to film school. And so it kind of just made sense that we'd all just work together.
Yeah. Perfect.
And our kind of secret weapon is that he's a legit awesome music producer, and he's had some real hits in Australia with his music. He has a project called Price Park, and he has a project called Godwolf.
Okay.
And he's actually just really good. So like it's our secret weapon that we can make songs about cum or you know, high school or whatever, and they're just dumb little comedy songs, but they're not just on a ukulele, they're not on like their big produced mastered songs.
It's an album.
Yeah.
It's an album of songs that you can listen from start to finish like any other album and be like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, it's he takes it really seriously, and it's funny because you got to go like, hey, I think we just need to emphasize when I say doodle sandwich there, or you know, like, but yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think he should make more wrestling intros as well, because you know, he because a lot of wrestling intros suck, and he could, you know, I reckon he could do it.
I think as well, like there are some really shitty like wrestling themes. I always prided myself on trying to have something that as soon as you hear it, it's distinctive, and people go, "Oh shit, this is Jonah," or "This was Bronson Reed when I was recently with WWE."
Can we talk about Death Grips?
Of course, yeah. Let's talk about it, man. It's great, right?
Oh man, like have you? For the people who don't know, for a very long time, your intro was "Guillotine" by Death Grips.
Yep.
And I remember my brother's a very cool guy, and we came to see Melbourne City Wrestling, and everyone had okay music, and but as soon as the pop when Death Grips hit, the bass is just so.
Yeah. Stop
this podcast and go listen to it, and then come back. It's just one of the best songs, and it's like it's the perfect wrestling intro because it's energy and it's there's weight to it, but it's also just scattergun and all over the place at the same time. And it really, like as soon as that hit and you came out, we were like, you were so over with Mitch and I, me and my brother.
Thank you. I'm glad people like when I decided to use Death Grips, I was using Scribe, if you know the rapper Scribe from New Zealand. I used to use the Not Many remix, which again, great song.
Yeah.
And then I heard about Death Grips and I heard this Guillotine song. As soon as I heard it, I'm like, well, that has to be my entrance music now. Like, it's just so distinctive. And I think it sort of went hand in hand with who I was. You have this like big, deep bass, and then you have this big guy walking out to it. It's hard to not, you know, become a part of it. I think everyone in the building or in the room feels that energy as soon as you hear the bass, and it goes through your body, that sort of bass, when it's really loud.
It's almost like I feel as a viewer, purely a wrestling viewer, the song is so important to get right. Like it's almost, if it's not everything, but if you don't get it right, you cop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think every wrestling fan does this, but I always go, what would my entrance theme be?
Yeah.
You know, like, and,
do you know what it would be if you did have a wrestling theme?
No. It's too weighted. It would, you know, I'd probably just use Lita's one from from the volume, whatever that was. Just feels right. No, I've got no idea. When we came out at Melbourne City Wrestling, we used one of Tom's produced Aunty Donna songs, and that worked pretty well for us.
Yeah, but, you could always just use one of his songs or get him to make something new. You know, that's the hard thing as well with wrestling. Like independent shows, you can have licensed music. Then obviously, like WWE, they want to own the music. So everything. It becomes a little bit harder. And I mean, in the midst now of you know, hopefully coming somewhere else. And I'm not sure if I can use Death Grips or not, but I'd really love to use it. Just
Someone mentioned me once you reached out to him directly. Is that right?
I did. So I reached out to, I forget his name, but it's
Mr. Grips
email. Yeah, Mr. Grips himself. And he was like, yeah, use it as much as you want. And then I sent through like some form for like legal purposes so I can actually use it and it can go on like video services and stuff like that. And he never sent back.
Yeah.
But maybe now that I've had a bit of equity to my name, maybe I can.
Mr. Grips.
Yeah, Mr. Grips. Think about
it. You could also do that thing that, like, you know, when you're watching TV and any ad comes on and you go, they've clearly heard one song and then gone to some guy, please make the royalty-free version of that song.
Yeah, I have thought of that. I know some people that can make music. I'm like, as long as you can just make real heavy bass, that's all I want.
Yeah.
I'll rap the nonsense over the top.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Jonah. Nice to meet you. Just over that.
Much like the wrestling scene, coming up in the wrestling scene in Australia is obviously difficult to break through to get overseas. Did you find that was the same with like comedy and acting? Like, is it hard to break through? I'm sure. Yeah.
It was. You know what? It was kind of Australia is a small pond.
It is.
You know, there's 24 million Australians, and there's 330 or 40 million Americans, or North Americans, Yanks, and what you often find here is there's less opportunities generally for anything in Australia. So like, there's probably the same percentage of comedians in Australia that to population, but there's just so many fewer opportunities to make a career out of it here, just because there's less people. So like, there's far less TV shows, far less chances to make a special. It's the same with wrestling. Like the chances to become a career wrestler in Australia are very small.
Very.
Because there's just heaps more opportunities. So like what we found is we tried to make a couple of TV shows in Australia and failed every time. So we, about 4 years in, we got given a pilot to make a pilot for a network here, and they canned it. We never got the chance to go ahead.
Wow,
we're really proud of it.
I never knew this.
Yeah. So that one happened and we're like, oh, bummer. And then another network came to us and said, let's make a pilot together. And we're like, great, here we go. Canned again. Because it's that the analogy I always use is like, you know, when a family has like a couple has one baby and they're like, this kid has to, we're going to make sure this kid he's going to be a great athlete and he's going to be really smart and he's going to eat well and he's going to, and they if it's a single child, they often are over looked after. But if you have like 10 kids,
of course,
the parents are less worried about them being a success or, like falling over. There's just not enough time. So in Australia, when you try and make a TV show, they want it to be perfect because they only have so much money. So it has to be perfect. But so we got to make a lot of pilots, but then when it came to giving us a series, people were just like too risky, too weird. So that we were like, I guess we're never going to have a TV show. But at the same time, with YouTube and with online, we found that like people were liking us all over the world. It wasn't just Australians who were liking us, which was very different to any generation before us. What used to happen is you had to become big in your country.
Yes.
Carl Barrett. Exactly right.
Very much Australian legend, but outside of that.
Yeah. So what we were finding is we had fans everywhere. So we started to tour overseas a fair bit. Like, so we did 2 tours. It sounds like I'm talking about war. We did 2 tours. We did 2 tours of the US and Canada that went really well. And we go to the UK all the time. We started to build this big fan base there. And while we were doing that, we were just kind of talking to LA and TV producers and just for fun, really. Like, we're like, this will be a fun thing to do, is just act like we're Hollywood superstars.
Yeah.
And eventually, while the Australia was stuffing around with trying to get us a TV show, Netflix just watched our live show in LA when we performed there, liked our vibe and gave us a TV show. And so
perfect.
And by the time we'd made all these failed TV attempts before. So we were just like so confident in our own voice and what we were about and what we're doing that we were just like, here's who we are. We're weird. We're not broad. this is what we do. And anytime that anyone tried to like move us off that, we were like, no, we're pretty confident in how we work. Yeah. And we made this show for Netflix last year, and it went online, and it was awesome for us. Like, and lots of people watched it all over the world, which was really exciting. But the funniest thing was that like the number one place where it outperformed anywhere else was Australia, which is the one place that no one ever thought we were too weird. Yeah. But it performed really well here. So it was that thing of we had to kind of almost similar to some people I know, some of whom might be on Zoom now, you have to go overseas to be just Australia has this thing called the tall poppy, or like, you know, cultural cringe, where you have to leave Australia to be a success.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. You know, it's almost like Australians shoot themselves in the foot. They have something really good and it's just, it doesn't do well there. But then, yeah, as soon as you're somewhat of success overseas, that's when people are like, oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
I don't know why though.
It's like it's insecurity. It's like you know, when if you have a sibling and you see them doing something embarrassing, you're like, or your parents, you're like, shut up, don't, you're embarrassing me, because they reflect you. They are who you are. And it's the same if you see someone, if you see an Australian and you don't think they're funny or you don't like them, they're reflecting you and you don't like that. So you tell them to shut up. And I think it's the same thing, but also when someone does well, whether it's, you know, I was going to say Ben Simmons, but that's a bad example right now.
At the moment, let's not speak of Ben Simmons.
Or you see someone like Josh Giddey, or you see someone like, you know, whoever, and they do well, then it makes you feel like it's you doing well. But I think it's a small town mentality, and it's an Australian thing, I guess.
It is very much. It's almost like Australia is a state here in the US, you know, where it's, even though it's a country, because of the population, it does feel like it's so much, everything does reflect you. Like, I'm Australian, that if I meet another fellow Australian while I'm here in the States, like, your best mate straight away, because you're like, oh, he's Australian. But which, if I met the same person in Australia, I'd probably be like, you know, fuck that guy. He's not.
Yeah, exactly. We could very well just be the 51st state of America. Like, we may as well be. We're smaller than a lot of states population wise, and we watch all the same shit. We eat the same stuff. We may as well be. You know, we would have had more vaccines if we did that.
Yeah. Don't start me on the vaccines. I live in Florida. It's a crazy.
Okay, great, Okay, understood.
We spoke about that before I pressed record.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, fuck yeah.
But the Netflix show was incredible. Big fan of it. As you said, obviously people in the USA, UK and stuff watched it. As we were talking about before, I said sometimes my American friends don't really understand the comedy, but I have British friends that I show it to and they love it. Like, I don't know if that's something similar amongst our cultures.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure. Did you find that when you were touring in the UK?
Yeah, UK. We have lots of fans in the UK. We did one of the worst tours of our life in the UK when we first started. It was the first place that we like properly toured to, and at the time we had no money and we were trying to get our start, and we signed with this management that wasn't, in the nicest way, they were in a transitionary period.
Okay.
And they booked us this tour around the UK that was like, it was the worst thing I've ever done. Like, we performed
the venues, or just
we had a couple, like we had like 20,000 subs on YouTube, so we had some fans, like probably cumulatively like 500 people in the UK who would want to see us, right?
Yep.
And we were like, it would have been great, like 3 years in, to just go and do a show in London and feel, oh wow,
awesome.
But if you've got UK listeners, we did places like Bedford, Milton Keynes,
I've been
Dartmouth.
I wrestled in Milton Keynes, so there you go.
Okay, right. Okay, and how was that? How was that, Jonah?
Not very good. So I understand.
We would get these we were staying in London, and we would get these 3-hour train rides out of London and perform in like 30-seater farmhouses. And like, I just remember going, we're losing so much money being here. What the fuck? But then like 10 or 15 fans would show up every time. And I was like, this is good. Thank you for being here. Otherwise, this would be a disaster. But it's good to remember that, because then like we got to a place where we were doing awesome sellout runs in London, and we go to Edinburgh a fair bit as well.
Awesome.
But yeah, the UK is sick. I think in the UK, there's a real stream of like smart comedy or like wordy comedy.
Yep.
And we are just the absolute antithesis of that. And I feel like we're almost like, we're probably closer to like some of the Manchester or like the UK wrestling scene a bit, where it's just like, just off the wall craziness.
Yeah. But it's appreciated, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand some of the UK stuff. I spent time there wrestling in some pretty sus places. The worst venue I ever did was actually in Australia. I wrestled in an RSL in Sydney in front of 7 people, and the guy I was wrestling almost concussed me with a kick to the head. So it wasn't a good night.
Not only was it a bad show, but you almost like
Yeah. And you didn't need to in front of 7 people. What's the lowest amount of people you've performed in front of? Like
it's probably we have a rule that there's got to be more people in the audience than there is on stage. So the number is 4. But I think we've probably got as low as like 10, and 10 is fine, to be honest. It just becomes
Yeah.
But there's nothing. I think it's worse, genuinely, being in the audience for that stuff than it is being on stage, because you just lock in and do it. I imagine it'll be the same with wrestling. You just wrestle. But when you're a crowd member and you've got to carry the weight, it's bad, man.
Yeah. Especially like there's been times like that one where, because there's only 7 people, one person tries to clap, but then no one else does, and then they stop, and it's real awkward because you can just see everyone in the audience. Where if there's hundreds of people, you can sort of be loud or react however you want.
Didn't you used to wrestle in a Chinese restaurant in Melbourne?
I did. That was fantastic, though.
Where was that?
It was called the Dragonfly.
That's sick. They should bring that back.
Yeah, it closed down. To my memory, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if they closed down the actual restaurant itself or they just stopped doing like gigs there. But basically, it was a Chinese restaurant, and the doors that you enter to go to the restaurant were also the doors we would come through to wrestle. And then they'd move some of the...
That was the gorilla. The gorillas.
Yeah, gorilla was just like the banquet hall A.
The banquet.
And they'd move like tables out the way. They'd set up a ring in the middle, and people could order their dinner while we wrestled. So it was very interesting.
There's an element to that where you're like, oh, the hard times, that's really rough. But then there's also like, Melbourne's a very hipster place.
It is, yeah.
I reckon there is a legitimate market for having a venue that does like live gigs, wrestling, whatever, and it's also just like a full Chinese restaurant. That would be sick.
I think now, 100%. They could reopen that now, and you'd have that sort of hipsterish market. But at the time, which we're talking like 2010 maybe, not so much. It was sort of just diehard wrestling fans coming out, eating their dinner, and then looking up at you doing something all of a sudden. But I always say the best part about it was we got free Chinese food after the show, so I couldn't complain.
I went out the one time that we were, in and around wrestling. It was a cool night too, because a lot of the wrestlers that were on the night that we were hanging around, because we just played a part in an event for Melbourne City once, and we were just very lucky to be around. I was surprised how much the backstage area smelled like curry, because it doubled as a curry kitchen. I was like, this is not what I imagine wrestling to smell like, but this is it,
The amount of times I'd be warming up or like stretching, and then like I would almost hit one of the guys working for the restaurant, and I sort of got cool with those guys that worked there at
Thornbury.
backstage at Thornbury, where they would make me real fat guy stuff. They would make me a batch of hot chips, and then they would sort of put it near me and be like, yeah, don't tell anyone else. And then I'd eat the hot chips. I don't know why.
Is wrestling like swimming, where you can't eat 20 minutes before you wrestle, or is it, just go for it?
I think everyone's different. For me, I don't eat, not during the show, definitely. I'll eat like beforehand, maybe a couple of hours before. I take pre-workout or I'll fall asleep. So sometimes wrestling is notorious for going overtime. You'll be told the main event's on at 11 p.m. and there's been times I'm going out there at midnight.
Ugh.
So that's how it's
the same as comedy. Some jerk just decides to try out his 45-minute routine.
Yeah.
I remember because I'm a douchebag and I go to the gym, I'm very guilty of talking to people who have dedicated their lives to a pursuit of mastering their body. And I go like 4 times a week, and I've got a problem of talking to professional weightlifters and wrestlers like I'm on the same level as them. So I remember there's a wrestler in Melbourne who I think is a Ring of Honor guy, Slex.
Oh, Slex, yeah. One of my close friends. Great guy.
Yeah. I remember he's got an incredible rig.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he pulled out a protein bar backstage, and I was just like, oh, I've had that one. It's delicious. And he was like, oh, yeah.
And if you've had it, who cares about his six-pack? Can he wrestle? Yeah. That's all that matters.
That's true.
Aunty Donna performed in that Rumble, I'm sure.
Can we? And the answer is no. The answer is no, we can't wrestle.
From memory, you had a New Japan T-shirt on when you did that appearance.
I was told to wear that because I was told that the audience, the audience is going to want to kill you, and anything you could do to kind of be over a little bit. We were like, I don't know. We were like, we should be bad guys because that's going to be easier. We should be heels because, And they were like, no, they'll like you. They'll like you. And I was just I was more scared for that gig than I've ever been scared for any comedy in my life, because I know what I'm doing when I'm doing comedy. I know how to win an audience over, but I know what wrestling fans are like, man. And I was like, they're going to fucking hate us. And we kind of so I wore a New Japan shirt and that got me over slightly.
I like the wrestling terms. I like that you're using the wrestling terms. I got over. You used kayfabe with me earlier before we started recording.
I've got my 4. I got over, kayfabe, heel, face, pop. We got pop. Steel chair. I'm very, because I've come out as a wrestling fan, I do get asked to do a bit of wrestling stuff here and there. So trivia nights or, potties and stuff. And I very quickly get shown to be a charlatan. I thought I was a wrestling fan. Turns out I'm not. I've watched a fair bit of New Japan. I've watched, I watch a lot of wrestling, but I just anytime push comes to shove, I get very embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's not an uber fan of wrestling, I think wrestling fans take it one way sometimes, where they're too much he doesn't know about this match in 1997 in Philadelphia, where it's well, not everyone's going to know that. Just enjoy what you like, and then.
But I remember being if I was in 1999, if I could have consumed all the data of wrestling in the world, I absolutely would have. But there was just no way to do it back then. You could get a magazine maybe, or you could get on one website or something.
Especially in Australia as well. It was even more difficult to source anything that wasn't WCW or WWF at the time.
Yeah.
Very hard to find anything else.
Oh, man. All you could do, there was a channel on cable, Foxtel in Australia, where there was a channel called Main Event, and that was the pay-per-view channel. Mm-hmm. And when a pay-per-view wasn't on, it was just promos for the stuff that was coming up on loop. So there was one Kiss was doing its farewell tour, funnily enough, in the year 2000. And there was, the one that I would, because I was so thirsty for any wrestling content. There was the recap of the My Way WrestleMania. I forget what year it is. 17?
WrestleMania 17, yeah. Arguably one of the best WrestleManias of all time, I think.
I rewatched it in COVID and it stands up.
Yeah. It's
brought to you by Snickers, I think.
Oh, there you go.
There was a 5-minute compilation package that I think I watched on loop for 6 months that year. Yeah. So I loved it, but I never got to have the IQ of wrestling that,
Yeah. Obviously, we talked about Netflix and you being burnt by obviously some of the bigger companies in Australia.
Sure.
I recently being burnt by the biggest wrestling company in the world. I was going to ask, how did you deal with that at the time? Was that?
I was going to say, it's a rite of passage to be burnt by
Yes,
organization. You'd be in the minority if you hadn't. Do you know my problem is like entertainment generally is a field where it's supposedly never personal and it's just making decisions and
yes.
But I have had a bad habit of always having a chip on my shoulder, which you kind of need as well. Where
you do, yeah.
You go, even though I understand why you've made that decision, I'm going to make you pay for it. I think is something that I do, and that's particularly hard with comedy because comedy can never take itself seriously. Like I'm a firm believer in that. Anytime comedy starts to take itself seriously, some of these big stand-up comedians who do these like arena tours, when they start to really get on their soapbox and tell you how it is, I kind of lose. I don't think you're doing comedy anymore. I think you've found a way to say shit that you want to say and you're taking yourself seriously. Places like, that's why I admire. Yeah, exactly. It becomes a bit TED talky. That's why I admire, I think the best comedic people in the world at the moment, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and probably have been amazing for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
Where they are so in tune with being comedians and being funny. They're so in tune with it, and it's really hard in a career to not wave. I'm outside, by the way. Sorry about the cars.
It's okay.
I'm in the mountains of far north Queensland. They've never wavered from how funny they are. It's always in what they do. Like they made fun of China last year, and China got really serious with them. And got like China did a very China thing and got mad, and and their response was to go, "All hail our overlords, China. We're so sorry." They're just always about being funny and doing something in a funny way. How did I get here? What am I talking about now?
We're talking about being burnt by a big company and how do you deal with that? And you said you had a chip on your shoulder, and then we got into comedy and people.
I think I need to have a little lay down. I've just had a mild stroke. It's you got to also just take the opportunities when they come and never rely on anyone is the big thing for us as well. Is big companies are there to fuck you over a little bit as well. It feels like they're there for you when it's beneficial to them, but they're also not there for you when it doesn't help them in the slightest bit. And I think we're coming into an era of, everything where you don't need them as much as you used to. They're really good to get you to the next level. Yes. But sometimes you can get swept away with thinking that, for thinking that that's more than what it is. You can think that just because you had a moment that it's just going to continue like that. And at least for my career, it's never been that way. It's always been, you have a breakthrough and then you hang around that for a while. And then I don't believe in overnight success is what I'm saying. Yeah. Sometimes you have big moments, but they're a result of lots of hard work that no one sees. Yeah. I just think that sometimes moments happen for you, but they'll come and go. And what's important is just keep doing what you do and engaging with the people that like your stuff.
Yeah, I think so. It's almost like a lot of these places will hire you to then eventually fire you. That's just what it is. I myself got rejections from WWE multiple times before I actually got signed. And
all right.
But it's just one of those things. I tell a lot of people coming up in the wrestling business, the best advice I can give you is just don't quit. And obviously, like yourself, having pilots, being canceled. If you up and quit then and went, oh, well, let's just quit, you would have never had a successful Netflix show. So it's the best thing to do.
Even at the moment when things are at their worst, it always feels like there's going to be no way back from it. But every time we've had oh no, this is a disaster moment, after it at some point, there's always been something bigger and better every time. Yeah. And like, there's been so many points where I've been like, I don't want to do performing anymore. I just don't want to be in this field anymore. And the only reason that I've kept going is because I can't do anything else.
Do you ever reflect upon things though? Like I've thought of the same thing where there was a time where I thought maybe I shouldn't be a pro wrestler anymore and look at other avenues, but then I'd go back and watch some of my favorite matches and be like, well, this is why I do it. Is that the same for you?
There's a big moment. There was like 2 years in, we used to be there used to be 4 performers in our group.
I remember seeing the YouTube videos.
Yeah. And he left and he's now a lawyer and doing awesome stuff and a very good friend of mine. But at the time I was like 23 and still in that no one gives a shit about what you have to say, period. And we'd spent 2 years, I reckon, trying to build this group. And he left and I thought my world had ended. I was like, I've just wasted 2 of the most important years of my life. I've wasted it. And I was like, I guess we're going to have to start again. And it turned out to be like the moment that he left, we all just went, we have to take this even more seriously. We have to really just lock down and make this work. And within like a year, we were touring across the world and our social media, like our YouTube channel had just ballooned. And that was a really, really cool thing. What was your question? I had something else to say off that. What did you just say?
It was, I look back at things that made me want to be a professional wrestler, and that's why I continue to do it.
I find that I often get tired and worked and drained by something, and I go, I don't want to. I like at points like I don't want to do comedy anymore. I'm just going to go be a teacher. Yeah, and I feel like so certain about that in that moment, and then a week later, I'm feeling it at the moment because I'm only doing acting. I'm not doing comedy at the moment. Yeah, I feel so strongly the urge to go back and do it.
Yes, you get the itch.
It never takes that long at all. Like, and I'm sure you're just like bouncing off the walls at the moment to get in a ring.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things like it's, almost 3 months, and that's a long time for someone that wrestles a few times a week. Like,
yeah, man.
It's really hard. I could imagine the same with you, obviously filming as an actor and not touring as a comedian could be hard, even though it's great what you're doing. It's just not what you're feeling.
We're also, at this exact time, we're supposed to be on tour around Australia. We off the back of the show, we announced this big tour, and we are all around Australia, and we tried to put as many seats available as humanly possible, and we sold out in like 3 days. And I was like, holy shit, this is going to be the best tour ever. And COVID shit meant that we've had to delay it into next year. And it's all fine. Like everyone's still coming. It's going to be awesome. But like, considering now I should be out just doing comedy and like having, in front of an audience and us having fun, and not doing it sucks. But it's also very exciting that that's going to be happening next year.
Yeah. I hope to, see a live show sometime next year, hopefully with restrictions and everything sort of getting better. I want to go back to Australia for a little bit.
You could come as of next week without quarantining.
I saw that, which is incredible. I need to be here at the moment for my immigration purposes. That's as much as I can say. But eventually I'll be back in Australia.
It must be nice to know that you can do that though, because you and your wife have been away from Australia for so long. I was going to say you're at risk of alligators probably as much as I'm at risk of crocodiles, which is a funny thing,
But I think crocodiles are more aggressive, so you're more.
Oh man, we're not allowed to go in the water here at all at the moment because my house here backs onto a river, and they're in there. Like they're not. It's not like they might be. They're legitimately just in there.
Yeah, that's frightening.
They eat dogs and shit, man.
Yeah.
And the worst part is they go in the ocean. Like, so you can't go for a swim. They're in the ocean.
Yeah. Saltwater crocs. That's what they do.
Yeah, man. Salties. They call them salties. And they are legitimately just dinosaurs. And they're not like little alligators that you can corral and put in a bin like that guy the other day. They're like, these crocs will eat you, get your driver's license, and then do some research and find out where your parents are and go eat them too. Like,
I've eaten crocodile, though. Have you eaten crocodile?
No. How is it?
It's okay. I guess it's like what everyone says. It sort of tastes a bit like chicken.
How is that? It's a red meat, though, yeah? It tastes like chicken?
No, it looks like the crocodile had, I don't know if it was the tail or what it was, but it sort of looked like a chicken breast. Unless the person that sold it to me just made me chicken breast, and I'm the idiot that went, oh, this is crocodile.
Oh, man. I should try some crocodile while I'm up here. There's too many crocodiles, apparently. What's happening is there's alpha crocs, sort of like you of the wrestling world. Alpha crocs. and they are pushing
like
all the
bad movie, Alpha Croc.
yeah, and they're pushing all the smaller crocs into like smaller streams where there's usually not crocs because they're so alpha that there's crocs, like too many crocs everywhere. Oh, wow. So I'm not getting any water is what I'm not going in any water.
You just stay right where you are, or go to the local KFC. That's about all you'll do.
Oh hell yeah, I'm going to do that after this. After you talking for like 20 minutes about the food,
KFC popcorn chicken. Definitely.
I'll do it for you. I'll take a photo.
Yes, please do. I'm going to ask you some generic questions that I'm going to ask all my guests. That's
please.
Sort of how I like wrap things up. But if you can give me one or a top three, your favorite wrestlers of all time.
Oh, can I go weird? I'll go weird because I'm not going to say Rock, Stone Cold. Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm just going to go weird. So S.A. Rios. I used to love S.A. Rios.
He was great. Great moonsault.
Yeah. The best live match I've ever seen had this guy in it, Will Ospreay. I think I should mention. I thought that guy's so impressive. And then number one, I am going to go with. It's hard. This is really hard. I've got S.A. Rios, Will Ospreay.
You need someone that's not a high flyer.
Yeah, I do love high flyers.
Oh, well, if that's what you like, then...
No, that's a good point, though. Fire out, Brussels sprout. This is too hard. I'm going to say... No, Jeff Hardy.
Jeff Hardy? Okay. Great wrestler. Very, very beloved by Australians. I think a lot of Australians will choose Jeff Hardy in their top five for sure.
I had a thing the other day. I can say this because I'm not a wrestler. I'm not in the industry, but like, I just went back and thought about how much I like D'Lo Brown and how I can't understand how I ever really liked X-Pac.
Yeah, I like both of those guys. I've met both of them. Both nice dudes. D'Lo Brown, very nice. And I remember when I was in primary school, I had a D'Lo Brown action figure. I would have been maybe 10 years old. And
Did his neck wobble?
It didn't, unfortunately, but I took it to school, and one of my friends said, "Hey, can I look at it?" Playing with it,
no,
broke his legs in half, and the whole thing came apart. And I hated that kid for so long. That's awful. He broke my D'Lo Brown. That's the first thing I think of when I think of D'Lo Brown. My action figure being broken.
I'm 90% certain a friend in year 7 stole my POD album.
Oh, that's such a good album as well. The Satellite.
Yeah, album? Satellite. Yeah. I know he stole it, and I've never gotten over that. He never admitted it, but I know he fucking stole it.
Yeah, he wanted.
I can listen to it right now. yeah, man. And that Satellite's a great song, and man, he stole it.
I think whatever year that came out, I got it for Christmas. It was in my. I remember unwrapping POD and being like, "Oh,
okay." Sorry, memory lane. There was Christmas one year. It was probably the same year I got Enema of the State and I got WWF Volume. Fuck, I don't know. The green one.
Yeah, I think that's 4.
Entrance themes. And I remember this is how great the world was then. It was charting. So like, you know how they used to have the chart? It was like number 4 in Australia. Enema of the State.
Sanity.
Yeah. I was like, these are the 2 best CDs ever.
My other question, favorite movie or top 3 movies?
Oh, this is so I can do
hard
this
question,
one.
Right?
Yeah. Paddington 2 is in there. Have you seen Paddington 2?
I've only seen Paddington. I haven't seen 2.
Okay. 2 is better and 2 is a masterpiece almost as far as like a film.
I'm going to watch it then.
Yeah. No, you'll cry. I cry a lot when I watch it. Also a film called Lady Bird.
Yep. Yeah, I like Lady
by
Bird.
Greta Gerwig. Yeah. I thought that was talking about. I love nostalgia shit, obviously, and that's a pretty great nostalgia film.
Great Dave Matthews Band song in there.
Yeah, he crashed into it. And then I'm going to say the one I usually say is Whiplash because it's kind of about being an asshole for creative reasons. I really like that movie, and I think I like films that are just like by the balls. Yep. And Whiplash is a by the balls movie. So those 3.
It's very tense the whole way through. Like there's just tension the whole way through that movie.
If I can add a notable fourth is an Australian film that got turned into an American series called Animal Kingdom. So
awesome movie, Animal Kingdom.
Yeah,
I haven't watched the American television series, but I've watched the movie Animal Kingdom, which is great.
That's just a awesome movie. Any film by Bennett Miller, right? So he's the guy who made Moneyball. Moneyball's in my top 3. I'm kicking out Whiplash. Moneyball's in there.
Okay.
And Foxcatcher
great movie.
and Capote. He made those 3 movies, and I think they're all pretty much masterpieces.
I haven't seen Capote.
Oh man, you'll love it. It's
one of those movies that I should have seen. But it's like, there's always those like real famous movies where for some reason you just don't see it. And that was one of them that I didn't see.
It took me a long time to see it too, because it's like, I don't want to see, I don't know what, it's too hard. You don't know what it's about, but it's actually a lot more engaging than you'd think. Foxcatcher, Moneyball, and Bennett and Capote by Bennett Miller could be my 3 top 3. And I'll go watch Capote and tell me what you think, because I think this guy is the best. He only makes he's made 3 movies in 30 years, and I think they're all the best.
Sometimes they're the best directors, right? The ones that make less films because I don't know if they put more effort or it's just takes their creative genius longer to make something.
100%.
Favorite musician or band? Or top 3?
Yeah, I was going to say, give me some 3 there. Okay, I'll go by genre maybe. So do you know what? I'm going to go Linkin Park.
Yeah, because great band.
Yeah, I think they're the one that I listen to the most still.
Hybrid Theory mainly, or
Hybrid Theory for sure. Yeah. And then some top tracks off all the other ones, but Hybrid Theory is the essay. It's the thesis. It's the Kendrick.
Oh, which one? Good Kid, Mad City?
Good Kid, Mad City. I don't mind.
Or just him in general.
I think DNA and all of that as well. I saw him on that tour, and so that's got us. But any Kendrick, to be honest, I think
he's a genius. He's someone I'm a huge hip hop fan, and obviously you have those pillars of hip hop guys like Notorious B.I.G., Tupac. I think of the new breed in the last 10 years, you have to say him, Drake, Kanye. They're probably the.
I think he's the best encapsulation of what's been and what's here, I reckon.
Yes. Yeah.
And then for a third one, this is gonna be. I'll do a weird one. So there's a jazz pianist called Brad Meldau who does. He's a good man. He's just a jazz pianist, but he's also got this huge connection to classical music. And he does a lot of covers as well, which is a good in for people. So he does a lot of Radiohead and stuff like that, but just riffs off it. And he's just great to put on and do stuff to. And I love him too. But I've probably missed 15 that I love. But that's great. I love doing these questions.
Yeah. I mean, I like the diversity in your answers as well. I'm someone that listens to everything. Fan of Celine Dion and then Sigur Rós. You know what I mean? I have such a diverse.
I should have said Sunk Loto for you.
I would have popped big time. I was such a fan of them growing up, and also because they were young teenagers. So I was like, oh, these guys are cool. I could be friends with them.
Yeah. Who else in that genre? You got El Nino. Did you like Deftones?
Huge Deftones fan. I have a Deftones flag in my garage gym, actually. Yeah, the white polo flag.
Oh, sick. Yeah. I love Deftones are sick. And they're also I listened to a podcast about them, how they're in the new metal era, from a diverse background. They're not I think they're Spanish or something like that.
Yeah. Chino, the lead singer is Spanish. And they're just not that their music changes, but it's almost you can listen to it in the early 90s and listen to it now and it's still fits in with the times somehow.
They're one of those fans. They're one of those groups as well that their fans will ride or die with them.
Yeah, I'm very much like that, and I know other fans of them that they'll listen to them nonstop, which is good.
Oh man,
that's the fans we need.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
The last thing I was going to do with you, I did it with my last guest. I came up with a little game, and the game is called Grade the Wrestler. My last guest was a teacher as well as a wrestler, so that's why I did it. But it was everyone seemed to like the game, so I'm going to keep it going.
Yeah, I love it.
What I'm going to do is fire out 10 names, 10 wrestlers, and you just give them a grade from obviously A being the best to F.
Great.
If you should know everyone. I kept it pretty broad.
No, I'll know them.
I didn't want to throw anything in there too.
To prep for this, I watched 28 hours of What Culture, so I'll know everything. Don't worry.
It's very biased, the What Culture, but yes. All right.
Here are the top 10 things. Sorry, go.
First wrestler, Gold Dust.
Solid 5.
5?
Sorry. Fuck. So I've been given an F for not being able to grade. Yeah, a solid C.
C. Okay. Chris Jericho.
A.
Okay. Yeah, he's very much an A wrestler. Duke Hudson.
A. Almost, I would have given him an A+ if he was called Tony Modra.
Trust me, he tried. Seth Rollins.
Okay. Oh, C.
C. Okay. Ricky Steamboat.
B.
Okay. Booker T.
A.
Gino Gambino.
A. Mr. Juicy. This man, that's a man. He just sends me Sopranos fucking memes all day, all night. Funny man.
He's a very funny man. Like, I think he's one of the funniest humans I know. Actually, he's making
a push. He's making a genuine, genuine. He's going to listen to this. He's making a genuine push to be the Aunty Donna bouncer for our tour.
Oh yeah, he would love to do something like.
We don't need one. We don't need that at all.
He's just
I'm going to be your bouncer, mate. Mate, what I do, I'll come along. I'm going to be, no one will touch you, mate. Yeah, anyway.
Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Oh, B.
Mick Foley.
Oh, B. But because I want to surprise people. I should have said A, but I'm going to say B. I don't know why.
Last but not least, Broden Kelly.
As a wrestler.
Hey, you've been in the ring, you've had a match.
That's true.
I consider you a pro wrestler.
Okay, great. Well, I know a scoop slam, and I know how to go over the top rope.
That's more than a lot of people know. Trust me.
Obviously, an admirable D. Like I passed.
Yeah,
I didn't fuck it.
There's people that are on quite lucrative contracts that might not.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Top rope, so.
Yeah, great. Did you ever go to Voltron? I'm sorry.
Voltron.
That was like a laser tag paintball place in the late 90s. So every birthday party I went to was there. I was sick.
Was it off of Richmond Road, or am I thinking of Cartmania, which had a?
No, I went there as well, which was also sick.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And I went to the time zone on Hindley Street as well. Had a laser tag thing before it got shut down.
Man. There was a place across the road from Castle Plaza as well that was sick.
Yeah, Castle Plaza. What a great place. I used to visit Castle Plaza.
For anyone who doesn't know what Castle Plaza is, it's like, it was the fashion capital of the world. It was just an incredible...
Ed Harris for life.
Yeah, Ed Harris, and there was a Sanity there, and... oh, man. Let's go for a pie at Castle Plaza sometime, Jonah.
Right. Sometime in the future... Me and you will go to Castle Plaza and hopefully have a pie, maybe play some Keno.
That's never happening. This is never happening.
Maybe not. Before I wrap it up, I'll let you go. Do you want to plug anything, or can you say anything? Or you can let the people know where to follow you. The wrestling fans that might not know who you are.
If you type in Broden Kelly on Instagram, you'll see me. I'm like 100 off 50K. I realized yesterday, so
getting close.
That's the only thing I care about.
You got the Cowdoy DP, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, someone did a bit of fan art of cow. People love Cowdoy. I'm in this tiny little remote town in Queensland, and there's only a few shops, and every 21-year-old boy is a Donna fan, I've found out. So everywhere I go, he's like, Cowdoy.
That's amazing. I mean, it's flattering, but I'm sure after a while it's probably...
Yeah, it's lovely. It's just...
Put the hat down and...
Yeah, it's shocking. It's just shocking as well. Like, it's just crocodiles and 21-year-old boys here.
And it's funny, like, when you meet someone that is, you're somewhat famous, you don't know what to say to them. Like, I remember I met Ben Folds in Adelaide.
Did you? Of course.
Yeah, he was down the beach. He was at Glenelg Beach, and I would have been 13. And I went up to him and I said, "You're Ben Folds." And he went, "Yep, that's me." And that's all I said. And then I walked off.
That when you said that, that's how it feels sometimes. You would have this as well, I'm sure. When you come back to Australia, you're going to have this as well, but you have to sort of talk people through that moment. Like you have to nurse them through that. You go, "Hey, how you going, man? What's your name?" Because otherwise it's just a weird, awkward interaction.
It is. I get that.
I'm sure you get it in Florida all the time as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of wrestling fans. There's fans that know who I am, who will say like Bronson or Jonah, or I'll get "You're that wrestler guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me."
Yeah, absolutely.
The wrestler guy. Yeah, that's me.
The worst one's when it's like, "Oh, hey, Zach, nice to meet you, man. Really cool."
That's great.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for being on the show. I don't know how long we went. Probably went over time, but it's okay.
Oh, we've had a yarn, mate.
I have no limits, and I probably won't edit it. It's just I put it up exactly like this.
This is what podcasting is, baby. It's long yarns.
Thank you.
Should be called Jonah Yarns.
I'll think about changing that, but I probably won't.
Too much effort.
Too much effort. Someone made me the JONAHDROME logo, and that's what it is from now on.
You can't change that.
Yeah. But Broden Kelly, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening, everybody.
And there you have it, my chat with Broden Kelly. I hope you all enjoyed it. I did very much. Very fun to get to chat to him. I'm a huge fan of Aunty Donna. But yes, as always, subscribe, like, hit the bell notification, and I will be back here next week, probably with another guest. Let me know what you thought of that one, obviously interviewing someone outside of the spectrum of wrestling. If you'd like me to do more of that, or if you'd like me to interview more wrestlers, or just tell me in general who you would like to have on JONAHDROME. Thank you once again for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.